is a personal appearance by Jose Perez.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Well, good morning, Dr. Perez. Please go ahead and tell us what brings you to see us today.
Well, thank you for having me, number one. So the goal, I think, of my presence at your meeting is to discuss the option of opening up telehealth at the Rush Medical Center in Meridian to allow us an opportunity to maintain that level 3 NICU, considering that there's significant distance between that NICU offering neonatal expertise around that area, and doing it in a telehealth way until we are able to fully recruit a neonatologist to also be embedded physically in that space.
So what is the current status of your NICU staffing with respect to physicians, to neonatologists?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I think I don't know if Alan and Barry Cockrell is also, and they could also chime in. My understanding is the neonatologist they have had has resigned, and his effective date of resignation is coming up very soon, and they have not been able to recruit a neonatologist. It is very difficult, to be fair, recruiting neonatologists to low population areas. And I think this is a national crisis situation. And so one individual they have will no longer be at Ochsner Rush. I would like to add that they do have nurse practitioners that have experience in high-level neonatal intensive care. And the plan is to continue having at least the 4 neonatal nurse practitioners that I have asked for collaboration practice agreements with you all, and I think you all received hopefully some of that information. But they're all 4 very, very experienced, know the Mississippi area, and have worked in high-level NICUs, including the University Center.
Let's see, Mr. Cockrell or Tyra, either. Do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, Dr. Owens, good morning. First, I want to thank the members of the board for this special accommodation. I know it's a lot of effort to put this together, and we greatly appreciate that. And Mr. Tyra is the Chief Executive Officer of Ochsner Rush Medical Center in Meridian. Can answer the questions. I will say that the thing has been elevated basically to a crisis situation because the one neonatologist who was in Meridian gave notice that he will, I guess, be retiring or no longer practicing as of August 28th. So as of August 28th, there will not be a neonatologist there. And so that brought us to work with Dr. Perez as part of the Ochsner Health System. The Ochsner Health System in New Orleans owns Ochsner Rush Medical Center in Meridian. And that brought us before the board to request this approval of this collaborative agreement. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yes, I appreciate the board hearing us and entertaining this idea. Dr. Boyd will be retiring. They have covered Meridian for probably 25 years with up to 3 neonatologists at one time. We have been recruiting for the last 2 years to try and find a partner for Dr. Boyd without any success at all. We've only had maybe 1 or 2 inquiries to come to Meridian, and he just made the decision that he could not do it alone any longer. A little bit demographically for us, we cover 8 counties in Mississippi and 4 counties in Alabama. And our Alabama business is probably shows the potential to grow because of the shuttering of obstetric services at the Demopolis, Alabama hospital. So we feel like we are seeing more patients flow in from Alabama than what we've seen in the past. We run an average daily census in our NICU of 3 to 4 patients. We do about 1,000 births a year, at our facility. And almost all of our transfers that leave the hospital come to UMMC. Happy to answer any other questions you might have.
So, yes, so, and I think Mr. Cockrell might have said that the effective date is August 28th, and this is retirement of a person who's a long-standing position. When exactly did he make the determination to retire?
He gave us notice about 45 days ago.
And so you said that you've been recruiting for 2 years. When was the last time you had more than one neonatologist?
It was a little over 2 years ago. And that position, due to family reasons, moved back to Minnesota.
Have you all explored locums or other in-person?
We have. Dr. Boyd he's a private physician, and he has utilized locums in the past. It's expensive. We're looking at locums now as a contingency plan. You're looking at, from a financial standpoint, about 130,000 plus per month to cover with the locums neonatologist.
So you mentioned also that you are level 3. So refresh my memory, for level 3 NICU, that means that what's the lower gestational age limit that that your NICU houses?
Dr. Perez, I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. So as you said, just for the board, everybody, just for awareness, it's a little bit different than trauma and order. So a level 3 is able to actually take care of babies that are considered critical in the sense of not only gestation, but also their ventilator needs and their cardiovascular needs and their nutrition needs. So from a gestational age, anybody less than 32 weeks or less than 1,500 grams will qualify for a level 3. How lower gestation you go really depends on other expertise. So it could be as low as 23 weeks, all the way to 32 weeks. Considering where Rush is at the current state, it would still be able to take care of babies less than that 1,500 grams, less than 32 weeks. They could be bigger babies that 32 weeks, if they require mechanical ventilation, because of depression, because of infection, because of immature lungs, those could also be cared for in a level 3, and they are not able to be taken care of in a level 2 if the ventilation is more than 24 hours in duration. And that would be another indication that's outside the pure gestational age, pure birth weight. And then any baby that has any complexity of care requiring long-term antibiotics for 7 to 10 days, may require a central line, things like that, or require any subspecialist evaluation, also will be best served in a level 3. I don't know if that answers the question of to your appreciation, if it's enough. I could provide more.
No, I think so, but I guess maybe I should have been a little bit more direct with the specific question. So, because it's not my understanding, and I just might be misunderstanding, that Rush is keeping 24-weekers. Is that, am I in error in that? Do you typically, if you have a person who comes in, a mom who comes in who you expect is going to deliver a 24-week baby, do you all plan to ship that baby, or would you usually keep those babies?
So I don't have a historical perspective on that. I'll wait for others. I do know their overall volume is very low, and volume does matter when you look at 24-week, 25-week care. I also will tell you, as you said, if a mom shows up and she's 24 weeks and she's going to deliver, putting that baby in an ambulance after birth is very deleterious and very risky overall. So if there's a 24-weeker that comes in that has to deliver at Rush, I think the plan would be to take care of that baby as best as possible, understanding that it's still 24 weeks gestation, and so survival is not as high as a 25 or 26 weeker. And then the second point, if that mom could be transferred to another institution and receive care there, that could also be part of the design that we could look at moving forward and restrict gestation a little bit higher than 24 weeks. So it's something that I think is open to more discussion. But I think we also have to be, as you all are aware, moms and families don't know what they have or what the differences are in ICUs. And so if she shows up, I think we have to take care of those babies. And we have great, again, neonatal intensive care NMPs that are more than capable of taking care of those babies, using telehealth as another resource to round with those babies on a daily basis, making sure that we speak to the families every day, make sure that we actually evaluate the medical records, look at the x-rays. We could do all that virtually. It does not require a physical presence to be able to do that.
So, Mr. Tyra, do you have any idea of what is the typical lower limit that your NICU feels comfortable handling right now?
I can give you some statistics from 23, the last full year we've had 954 total births, 139 total NICU admissions, and 10 of those were very low birth weight, which would have been less than or equal to 1,500 grams. We transferred out 17, which I think indicates to me that we transferred out most of those very low birth weight babies. Vented days, very low vent days, 18 for the entire year. Vent days, an average daily census of 3. The percent of admissions less than 32 weeks was 12%. The percent of admissions 32 to 33 weeks was 9%. The percent of admits 34 to 36 weeks was 22%. The percent of admits greater than 37 weeks was 47%.
So you have currently 4 or 5 NPs?
We
I
have
think I heard 4, but I think I saw 4, but I heard 5 or maybe.
We've hired 4, and we're in the process of hiring a 5th. 5 would give us a complete complement to cover every day of the month.
At this time, I'll open it up to the other members of the executive committee. I do want to take a moment though and at least acknowledge, I thought, Ken, are you there? Can you unmute and say hello? Ken Lippincott, who is the vice president of the board and part of the executive committee, is also with us. I've neglected to mention that earlier, but he is joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Yes, I've been here from the start.
I saw you. I just didn't acknowledge you, so I wanted to just let everybody know who all is in the room and who's participating. So any questions that either of you have?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Tom Dorner. I am a family practice physician. I was trained at the university. I did quite a bit of pediatric rotations, NICU rotations, and I almost went into pediatrics. On call at night when we would get called to the OR because of such situations, it became a very seriously hands-on situation where you had to make some critical life-saving decisions right then. And what bothers me is your OBGYN, I mean, not OBGYN, your neonatologist is gonna be living 200 miles away. You're gonna be staffing with mid-level providers. I'm uncomfortable with that, so two things. One, explain to me why I shouldn't be uncomfortable with that. And two, what does the OBGYN community in Meridian feel about this? Are they aware of it? What do they feel about it?
I would, to answer your first question, that's the model that's in place now. The neonatologist that's covering us employs neonatal nurse practitioners who are in-house for all of these. So they're the first line now. The neonatologist follows up.
You're saying the nurse practitioner is the first line now,
Yes,
but you do have a neonatologist readily available.
he is in town.
Okay.
And the OBGYNs on our staff I have discussed this with them, and they're very comfortable. All of our neonatal nurse practitioners, they all have great years experience.
Right.
If I could add something,
Let me ask you a question real quick. Do you
Sure.
feel like a nurse practitioner, particularly in this case, can replace your skills and knowledge?
I believe the answer to that would be that we would work as a team, the same as we could work as a team if I was there physically. So going back to your point, I think that when you have that emergency situation of a 26-weeker being born that you didn't expect in the OR, and that's a crash C-section, it takes at least 30 minutes for somebody to drive in and take care of that baby, even at best case scenario at 2 o'clock in the morning. Telehealth actually gives you an opportunity to be in that delivery room in 2 minutes or maybe 1 minute. So I think access to care is actually improved, not decreased, by telehealth. It's just a different thing that we've been used to. I believe that the nurse practitioners, depending on situations, are probably the best equipped to provide the life-sustaining resuscitation required to keep that baby in stable position, whether that be an intubation or not. Neonates are very different than pediatric patients and adult patients. If you take care of the airway, that is 98% of the entire story. If we have nurse practitioners that are very good at intubating and resuscitating babies with that, then I think we're ahead of the game. I feel very comfortable. Our nurse practitioners, based on their CV and based on my ability to just hear from our system lead and then neonatal nurse practitioner, I'm very comfortable that they could actually resuscitate a baby and we could be there immediately as compared to 20, 30, 40 minutes later when somebody's driving in and does not have eyes on what's going on. So I do think that telehealth actually is an advantage, not a disadvantage in the situation that you discussed.
I'm really concerned about that because like I said, whenever you're in the operating room and they deliver a 25, 26, 27 weeker, it becomes a tense situation and it requires intubation and it requires central line placements and it requires all that type of coverage. So,
Again, I respectfully just let you know that doing this for 30 years, they require the central lines in the NICU, not in the delivery room, and they should not require resuscitation of that manner if we have good people, including respiratory therapists, that could take care of the airway. Whether I'm there or not, a nurse practitioner with a level 3 experience is equal to a neonatologist to take care of a baby in the delivery of 25 weeks and above, and probably 23 weeks and above very comfortably. And I think that we're there to help the team, but we're not the vital cog in the wheel to just say that baby lives or dies. It's just a difference of evolution of neonatal care from the 1990s to the 2020s we actually, if you look at the amount of babies that actually are intubated that are less than, or if they're above 25 weeks, it should be 20%. Only 20% of babies that are 25 weeks or greater require even an intubation in the delivery room. And a lot of that is thanks to our OB colleagues who give steroids to these moms and have really made a humongous difference. So it's really a team effort. But I would tell you that in today's world, it is very different than when I started in the 1990s on how many babies really require what we actually see in neonatal delivery rooms, and also what we see in the NICUs. Most babies could be handled without intubation, but if they do, the nurse practitioner is equal to a physician in intubating a baby.
Well, 30 minutes away from the hospital as opposed to 2 hours away from the hospital is a big difference, going without your expertise or a neonatologist. That is most concerning. How many neonatologists do you have on the staff at Ochsner's New Orleans?
So which campus are you talking about, sir?
The New Orleans, the main campus of Ochsner's.
So the level 3s are similar to that, like they actually are not in-house at night. So the nurse practitioners actually take care of the babies and the resuscitation.
How many neonatologists do you have on staff?
At Baptist, for example, we have 7. At West Bank, we have 2. At St. Tammany, there's 3, but there's only 1 that's full-time. If that helps with that information. But we are available via telehealth immediately. In 1 or 2 minutes, we could see the entire story of what's going on. It's not like you're away and you're not seeing what's going on. You visually could see what's going on.
What would be the problem with your staff rotating out one day a week and providing neonatology coverage?
We don't have that bandwidth right now.
Ken, do you have any questions, Dr. Lippincott?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Ken Lippincott. I'm a psychiatrist in Tupelo, but I made an A in OB/GYN back in the 70s. But I was just curious, you say in-house, are the nurse practitioners in-house on call?
Yes.
And what type of audio-visual equipment do you have?
So what we would have is what we have actually at Ochsner in Louisiana, which is it's called like an echo cart. It has an ability of visualizing. It could focus in, focus out in the delivery room, or actually in the NICU itself. It has wheels, so you can move it around. So if you don't have it placed only in one delivery area, you could actually move it around and see what's going on. It has really high resolution. It's just like this Zoom meeting, but a little bit greater, because you could zoom in, you could zoom out, you could look at x-rays just like a person that's actually physically there. You could actually do that as well. So you actually have eyes, but you have eyes through a machine, an artificial machine.
So is there a nurse practitioner on site at all times, or do they just come in when they're called?
Alan, could I since I don't work in Mississippi, I would tell you in Louisiana they're on site. They're
on site.
Oh, and if there's more than one sick baby, can more than one come in?
They could, yes.
Okay, and just curious, how many OB/GYN physicians do you have there in Meridian?
Practice that are credentialed at our facility, we have 3.
Okay.
Are all actively practicing?
Yes, they are. We have 3 that are just doing GYN only as well, and we also have an OB, a laborist program, 24-hour laborist program. So we have an OB/GYN in-house 24/7, and we also run a 24/7 dedicated obstetrics emergency department.
Okay. And how many of those audio visual telehealth setups do you have?
We currently have one that we've ordered just for NICU and delivery room, but we utilize them in various places throughout the hospital for teleneurology, telestroke, and they have worked really well.
Okay, well, thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Dr. Cleveland?
Thank you. So Anderson is right across the street. Yes. How are they managing this situation?
I don't want to speak for them, but what I've heard is that they're in the same boat as we are. Same physician was covering them, that they have secured weekly locums coverage, at least for the first 2 weeks. I can't speak to what happens after that.
So have y'all not spoken with each other and tried to work out a joint agreement between the two hospitals?
We have tried to recruit jointly, and again, have had no success.
You mentioned earlier that the cost of a locums is $130,000. If you split it with Anderson, that drops your cost by half. You know, so I'm kind of wondering have y'all talked to Anderson about sharing locums?
We have, and both parties have to be interested.
So I know you can't speak to them. All right. Dr. Perez, I get the impression that in Louisiana, Ochsner is already using this model. Is that the case?
Ochsner is using the model in Louisiana, yes.
Where the NICUs are staffed by nurse practitioners without a neonatologist present.
Correct. And let me elaborate on that a little bit, because I heard the previous question from a family practice physician. So at St. Anne's, which is not a level 3 NICU, we routinely attend high-risk deliveries with the family practice physician and a nurse and an RT, and provide care at that institution. We also provide consultations for babies that have respiratory distress or any questions they have. So we do that right now at St. Anne's. We also do it at Kenner, and attend the resuscitation with a nurse and an RT, and have a nurse practitioner as a backup as well. I also will be fair to say that I have been doing this at Washington through the University of Washington, Seattle Children's for over 3 years, and we provided telehealth exclusively with a nurse practitioner or with a family practice attending at multiple hospitals throughout the state, helping stabilize babies.
And so these places that do not have a neonatologist on site, do you have statistics on survival for those locations?
Yes, we actually have a publication not only of the same outcome or like non-significant differences in outcomes, but in addition to that, also parental comfort and parental satisfaction with this different format of care. And as the board, as your question is alluding to, and I think that's very important, is we will continue to follow our metrics before and after, if the board gives us permission of following these metrics. It is important that a lot of metrics are based on evidence-based care, and not so much the difference between telehealth and non-telehealth, but how good your algorithm is and how good your team is at providing evidence-based medicine.
Dr. Owens, can I ask a couple of questions? Thank you. Dr. Perez, when did you first become involved with the neonatal program at Rush? When were you first asked to, become part of the equation?
Alan could help me, but I believe it was when this gentleman actually said that he was retiring, and they were looking at potential opportunity not to shut down the NICU. And we discussed that I will be involved in helping them recruit. And so I have actually helped them in speaking with candidates who have expressed possible interest in joining the Rush Medical Center as a neonatologist. I don't have the specific date, but I would say it was around the time this gentleman announced that he was retiring. And I have been involved with Alan and Barry and others to try to bring in a neonatologist. I think we all agree we want a neonatologist at Rush. The question is, do we have a fill-in between now and then? And can we actually even enhance care, even with a neonatologist there, by incorporating telehealth like we do in Louisiana and Washington, and bring it to Mississippi in a neonatal format to provide even better care? So I think that's what I'm most excited about, is actually this format doesn't have to be a one or the other. It could be a hybrid approach. And I think that's where I'm hopeful that is eventually where we end up. But telehealth is a really important partner in TeleNICU and providing high quality, safe care.
Dr. Perez, one question about your previous comments when you're describing the practice model as it's used in Oxnard facilities in the New Orleans area. I'm a layperson, so I apologize if I get some of the facts wrong, but I believe you said that when you have high-risk pregnancies at level 3 NICUs, that when you have high-risk deliveries, you have a neonatologist physically on the site. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand?
No, they're not in site. They're on call from their home. If the baby delivers at 2:00 in the morning, and he's like, let's say a 28-weeker, the nurse practitioners will take care of those babies. And the neonatologist probably won't make it to the delivery room. Even for the high-risk deliveries? Yes. If they're not on site, and they're not expected to be on site, their contracts are not on site. They're on site during the day to round and discuss plans with the parents and with the NMP and with the team. And all these areas, the North Shore, West Bank, and other areas around town, the neonatologist does not stay in the hospital 24 hours. And I think that's the model everywhere. It's not just a model in Louisiana. Level 3s are not occupied by a neonatologist 24/7. They have 24/7 obligations, but they're not always in-house.
So, Dr. Perez, I guess that's a great lead-in to my next question. Does it change because neonatal levels of care and maternal levels of care are centered around service provision and resource availability. So does it change the level of NICU care, or the NICU's level? Is it impacted by the absence of a neonatologist? So for example, you don't have a neonatologist on site. You don't have a neonatologist immediately available. Say we're however long down the road and there's nobody. Doesn't that change the level of the NICU based on that information? Or how does telehealth factor into that? Because at least in our worlds, having somebody available versus having that person on site actually changes the level of care that you can hold yourself out as. So and I'm not sure if that's really clear, but if you need clarification, I'm happy to clarify.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think let's start with the OB component. I think that OB has to be part of the communication of saying, as I said before, babies today in the NICU are considered level 3 based on birth weight, not because of complexity. So babies that are 25, 26, 27, 28, definitely 27, 28, 29, 30, a neonatologist, whether he's there or in telehealth, should not impact the level of care. We could still provide level 3 quality care without the presence of a neonatologist, boots on the ground there. We could do it through telehealth. If you're asking me if there's a baby that are more the peri-viable stage, 22, 23, 24, I would say independent of telehealth, I think every center has to look at their statistics and decide, is that the best place to deliver 22, 23, 24 weekers? I don't think that telehealth actually is the one that is the main determinant. I believe it has to do with your internal metrics and your internal resources to take care of those babies. So it's really not because of a NICU neonatologist there or not there. I think it has to do with your own institution. And do you have an in-house OB? Do you have OB hospitalists? Do you have MFM? I think it's just I think I'm looking at it, maybe I'm confusing some of you and I apologize, but I think you have to look at it from a complexity level, from all the way from MFM all the way to NEO. NNPs could build you a beautiful NICU and have great success if you have good leadership from the neonatologist to make sure the quality of care, the antibiotics, the IV fluids, the nutrition, the breast milk, the medications are all appropriate. That's where the neonatologist actually comes in. He doesn't come in because he builds the NICU. He comes in as a team leader. And I think that's where I'm trying to sort of create the narrative is it's not the physicality of the neonatologist. It's the neonatologist as a leader in that institution. And there are neonatologists that have their eyesight is no longer as good as they were in their 30s. I will tell you the nurse practitioner is a much, much better person to intubate that person, that baby, than the neonatologist whose vision is no longer 20/20 and his control of his hands and his ability to really do things the same. And I think, I mean, I'm just being honest. I don't think that all neonatologists are created equal either. So just having a person there doesn't equate to high quality just by itself.
So I appreciate those comments, and I think I agree, just like all neonatologists aren't created equal, neither are all nurse practitioners. But I think I just want to make sure that I'm clear on your statements as we are considering the positions that you all have presented today. So is it and this actually was in reference to the response that you had given to Mr. Barnes's first question. So is it your position that telehealth is actually superior to an in-person neonatologist? Or is it your position that it is equivalent? What exactly is your position when comparing the two? Because I don't know that I'm exactly clear, and I want to make sure that I understand what it is that you are presenting.
Yeah, I still feel the current comfort always is to have a neonatologist in-house. And I won't say that that's ever wrong. If you're asking me if somebody is needed in 2 seconds at 2:00 in the morning, I would tell you that telehealth is probably superior to having somebody driving from home at a very high rate and making decisions when 30 minutes later. That's too late. So I believe that from that standpoint, telehealth is superior. For a family to see a physician in person and communicate with them is probably superior to over a telehealth equipment. So I think the personal touch points are still better in person than through telehealth. If you're asking me about the operations, what I'm stating is that babies that are between 25, 26, 27, 28, all the way to 31 weeks could easily be taken care of equally between telehealth and in-person, not making one better than the other. That has to do with your team. And so I'm not trying to escape the question. What I think the question is very complex, and I think it's very difficult to answer it in a very simplistic way. Having done this for 30 years, I think there is a difference, and it has to do with the person, not with the equipment.
So the other scenario, I guess, that I would want to mention, because as you talked about, that there are still procedures that have to be performed. And as a person who is a proceduralist who is also maturing, in my practice, I think that, there are definitely skills that are different when you're younger, but for a lot of proceduralists, you become actually more fluent and better the more that you do and the longer you do it. So I guess the thing that I'm thinking of is whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or if it's 9 o'clock in the morning, and you have a baby that needs to be intubated, and the nurse practitioners that are on can't intubate the baby. How exactly do you manage that from a telehealth perspective? Like, how do you deal with procedures from a telehealth perspective? How is that intervention helpful? Because I would submit to you that in that case, if it's my baby on the warmer, I want the neonatologist en route in the car as opposed to somebody on a screen.
So I feel that the person that needs to intubate the baby is the one that's the best at it, not the one that has an MD or an NMP behind it. And so we have babies here at Baptist that are as little as 22 weeks. Our NMPs intubate those babies with equal proficiency. So I want to make sure that we're clear that there's no data to support a physician is better able to intubate than an NMP. And the reason for that is actually a pretty good reason. And it's a good reason, is that we all go through the same simulation training. We all undergo NRP. It's no different between the two levels. And so I want that baby, if it's your family, to be intubated on the first attempt. And I think the assumption that a neonatologist does it better, what I am saying is that's not true anymore. And that's not always a default person. It depends on the actual person to do it. Intubation is a much more difficult skill, as you said, because we do it less often. So I would say that maybe the person that has the best expertise should do it, regardless of title. To your second question, I think if it's we have equipments such as kaleidoscopes and other equipments that have improved the success of intubation, as an example. So individuals using that equipment are much better at intubating babies. Let's say, to your last point, no one could intubate that baby. I think we have to get anesthesia and other people involved, the same as if a neonatologist could not intubate that baby. So what I think it requires is really good simulation training, good tools, the best equipment, and things of that nature, debriefs, things of that nature. But I don't think that it's really a neonatologist by himself that is actually going to be the ultimate decider of if that baby is well intubated or not. And I know that changes some of your mindsets, and I respectfully understand. But living in this world, there are many occasions where somebody who doesn't usually intubate for 6 months is not the best person to intubate the difficult baby. Maybe it's a person that intubates more often. So, I totally agree and understand what the board is saying. We all want a neonatologist at Rush. Do we want to have a hybrid model anyway? It's my own question. But I feel that the babies could get very safe, quality care. And as you were saying, if they have a high propensity of requiring intubation, what we could do is limit, at the current time, some babies at Rush to be a little bit older gestation that we could get by without intubation, if that's a concern of the board.
Any other questions?
May I step in now?
Sure, I think that's Dr. Blueball. He retired from neonatology in Meridian, several years ago.
He wasn't on my list, so. I did not
Okay.
have
Let me just say I'm here for one reason, and that was a few days ago, I was told that I was recommending telehealth at Rush, and that is absolutely wrong. To give you a brief history, Rush recruited me in 1990 to join Dr. Mims, who died suddenly of a heart attack in 1991. 1991 to 2022, I was the medical director of the NICU. In 1993, we were asked by Anderson Hospital to come and provide the same level of service at Anderson Hospital as we did at Rush. Rush is my home. I feel a very high emotional attachment to that unit. I trained those nurses. I trained a lot of the nurse practitioners. I took care of the nurses when they were 20 years old, when they had babies, when I've attended their children's weddings. Rush is my home, and I'm extremely disappointed in the direction in which they are going. I want to clarify a few things. I recruited Dr. Boyd. Initially, I recruited Dr. Hay, who then retired. Then I recruited Dr. Boyd, who is there right now. I wrote the contract for both of the hospitals. That contract requires a 90-day notification that before the neonatal services, which was our private corporation that covered both hospitals, could withdraw services. Both hospitals had 90 days to resolve this problem. So in looking at the differences, Anderson's hospital, which some of you don't know, is less than 100 yards away. It is, Rush is on the south side of 14th Street. Anderson's on the north side of 14th Street. And because of family situations, they've never gotten along. We were one of the few medical entities that went between the two hospitals. So Dr. Boyd had coverage until about 15 months ago. Dr. Nagaraj, his father and brother died on December 23rd, 2 years ago in India from unrelated medical illnesses. At the same time, his daughter was being treated for acute lymphocytic leukemia, and his wife filed for divorce. He could not continue on working the schedule. Dr. Boyd then has been hiring locum tenens to come in and cover him so he gets some time off. I believe in the last 90 days, he has had a total of 5 days off. It's affected his health, it's affected his marriage, and he has not been able to consistently get locums care. Anderson's went out immediately, and they have complete locum coverage throughout the month of September. Also, shortly after Dr. Boyd submitted his resignation, Anderson has met with him on numerous occasions, and he has agreed to continue on at Anderson Hospital as a locums a week a month, 10 days a month, or maybe even 2 weeks a month. There's been no communication with administration at Rush. Very disappointing. I understand an academic situation in a major hospital like Dr. Perez is in. from the time I get a phone call at my house to the time I'm in the unit is 7 minutes. And that's at 2 o'clock in the morning. I prohibited Dr. Boyd from buying certain houses because they were too far away from the hospitals. He's approximately 12 minutes away. Most of the time we beat anesthesia to the hospital, and we also beat our nurse practitioners. Any baby that is born at 32 weeks or less is attended by a neonatologist. There may or may not be a nurse practitioner there. Generally speaking, I did not bother the nurse practitioners if I was going to be there, because I was going to perform all the procedures and do all the notes. But anything that was 32 weeks or below were attended by a neonatologist. All NICU admissions have a neonatologist come to the unit and see them, with very few exceptions, such as a repeat admission for a hyperbilirubinemia on a breastfeeding baby or something like that. Just this last week, Dr. Boyd was asked to come and to evaluate a baby that had a bilirubin of 24 with a very low indirect fraction, and looked at it, and it was looked at by one of our nurse practitioners, and it's probably a breastfeeding and dehydration. And he got in and he looked at the baby, and something wasn't right. He ended up doing a septic workup on the baby, and within 24 hours, he had positive cultures. If that baby would have gone home, the baby would have died. Neonatal nurse practitioners do not stay in-house at night. They are strictly on call. Anderson's has all but one of the neonatal nurse practitioners that we hired, and we had 4 full-time neonatal nurse practitioners. Anderson's has hired all but one of those. They are all going, and Anderson's has a full complement of neonatal nurse practitioners. I will say that there is a neonatal nurse practitioner at Rush. Her name is Casey Hall, and absolutely the best nurse practitioner I've ever worked with. I think that if you look at the OBs at Rush, there's 3 that are doing deliveries right now. 2 of them have full staff privileges at Anderson's, directly across the street. I asked Dr. Boyd to check to see whether emergency privileges could be given to the 3rd person, and he approached the administration at Anderson, and they said that they did not see that that would be an issue. I'm very much opposed to telehealth. When Dr. Perez was talking about intubations, and there was actually a study that was done on intubations and who was the most successful, and this is done in an academic institution. The most successful at intubating a baby, regardless of gestational age, was a senior neonatal fellow, and then the junior neonatal fellow, and then the attending physician, because it does have to do with practice. Probably somewhere between 6 and 8 times a year, Dr. Boyd and I are asked to come to the emergency room at either Anderson Hospital or Rush Hospital because they're having to resuscitate a baby, because the ER docs can't get it, the nurse practitioners can't get it, and even the anesthesiologists can't get it. So I disagree. I hope that Dr. Perez, in his discussing with the neonatal fellows, does not believe that their 3 years of fellowship are wasted. I'm open to questions.
Dr. Lippincott, do you have any questions? You can shake your head or put your thumb up or down.
No thanks, Dr. Owens.
All right, any other questions? Thank you very much for your comments. Being
If I
very
may.
familiar with Meridian, I didn't understand exactly where somebody would be living, where it would take them that long to get in. But
No, Meridian
I do
is not a big city.
I appreciate that confirmation, because I didn't think that it was something worth sharing. But thank you very much for that perspective. Yeah.
If I may, just to clarify on some of Dr. Bluebaugh's comments. Larkin Kennedy, who is our president and CEO, has had several meetings with Dr. Boyd to discuss what options might be available to him. I'm not sure if Dr. Boyd relayed that to Dr. Bluebaugh or not. Dr. Bluebaugh has been retired now for several years. And I think Dr. Bluebaugh actually highlighted what the issue is we face in Meridian. One neonatologist cannot cover in Meridian. The recruitment of an additional neonatologist now will only follow the same path that we're currently under, and that's they're going to burn out. They've got to have a quality of life. And I think we've got to embrace the technology that's out there and utilize it to our advantage in these underserved areas to recruit, and more importantly than recruit, to retain and provide these providers with a quality of life that makes them want to stay in these smaller communities.
May I say one more thing about recruitment? As Alan said, I retired about 2 years ago. I talk with Dr. Boyd at least every week. About 45 days ago, I received a email from the pediatric recruiter from Ochsner's trying to recruit a neonatologist that is joining 2 existing neonatologists at neonatal services to cover Rush Hospital and Anderson's. There hasn't been 2 neonatologists there in several years. Neonatal services is closing up and Dr. Boyd is leaving. This was something from years ago. So, you know, I think that it's going to cost these hospitals a significant amount of money to bring someone else in. It's unfortunate that neither of these hospitals were actively helping. I don't, Alan can correct this, but I don't even think there's a physician recruiter at Rush that's in Meridian. And to give you an idea, when I recruited Dr. Boyd, it was Dr. Hay and I was recruiting Dr. Boyd. In order to make an impression on him, to get him to come to Mississippi, I sent a private airplane after him, a twin-engine plane, to bring him and his family to town. That was expensive, and it was a great investment. But there are neonatologists out there. There are neonatologists that are locums that are out there. And I really think that doing telehealth is a backward step to a state that has the highest infant mortality, either 49th or 50th every year in the entire nation. I disagree that my 3 years of pediatrics and fellowship does not give me a better feeling for taking care of sick babies. And I don't think there's anything better than putting your hands on the baby and doing the physical exam and talking to the family yourself.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I would only add 2 sentiments. I respect everything, and I don't have that perspective. I think that for individuals who have never used telehealth, I think they are I hope they have an opportunity to evaluate it and perform it to really understand the benefits of it. It does not remove the importance of a neonatologist in-house. Number two is that your high mortality, despite having neonatologists in-house, speaks that there has to be a change in patterns of care that is independent of a telehealth or an in-house neonatologist. There are many factors to that, but I think we also have to take a hard look and say, where can we improve? And I think a full evaluation would be beneficial to everybody in Mississippi, including the communities. Because if you're 50th with this model, I'm not sure we could go in any other direction but up with all other alternative ways of looking as it as an adjunct, not as a substitution for a neonatologist. And I want to make sure no one comes to this end of this discussion thinking that I'm saying that neonatologists are not vital. They are vital, but we also have to provide for our families. And if a person has to drive a certain amount of distance to get that care, that also is risky as well. So I appreciate everybody on the board. My goal was just to provide you with an idea of what telehealth can bring to the table, having done this in 2 states. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. And
Dr. Owens, a procedural issue only. I see that Dr. Perez has requested an exception to the 2080 rule. I think he also would need an exception to the 75-mile rule. Is that not correct?
No, that in hospital doesn't require a
Oh.
75-mile rule.
I apologize.
That's all right. I had to be told the same before this meeting, so.
any other comment? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we close this session to move into executive session, consider executive session.
Second.
So it's been moved and properly seconded that we close the meeting to consider whether to enter into executive session. All in favor? That's it. Is there nobody to be opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, how you doing?
session, and Dr. Joyner, the secretary of the board, will give the decision of the executive committee.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. The executive committee discussed this matter, and we have voted to deny this request to suspend the 2080 rule.
If you all have any questions, you can speak to the executive director, and he will be happy to follow up with you. Thanks everybody for your attendance today. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Ken, you're seconding.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.